I'll have to go through all this stuff. Alright, so we have the movement controller right here with our different states. Basically, if we are in the ground or on the air or whatever, we're going to set our states correctly based on that. So I guess what we should also be doing is if the down key is held, then we want to crouch. So let me think. Is it based on our speed, or should the movement controller control this, or should there be some sort of other thing that's going on? Because the question is, we've got our gameplay stuff here for player control. And this is kind of supposed to control like what the player does, and the movement should control what Bitey is doing and how Bitey can move. So this thing should, like the player logic object should actually trigger the entering of crouch and stuff like that, or it's going to try to. Well, it shouldn't necessarily. Well, it should. Yeah, it really should. This thing should say yes, you should crouch. And the movement controller should actually control how you get into the crouch state. So the logic object is the intent to crouch. And the movement controller allows the crouch to happen. So what we should do in our player logic object is we should basically look at our directional movement, I guess. Or should we make a specific thing here for like looking up and down? We should make another thing which is crouch. Alright, yeah. This is going to be a branch. So we need to set up our conditions, basically, so if we are currently like in our jump animation thing, so if that equals 0, then we might be able to crouch. If our physics state is not on the ground, then crouching should be false. So if we are not on the ground, so if this equals on ground, alright, so now let's check if our velocity is, we're going to want to look at our directional movement. So we want to get our axis values for left stick x-axis and all that. And our left stick y-axis. So we need some local variables here. This is going to be x-axis and y-axis. Let's make them both floats. Alright, so we'll snag our x and y axis information off of that, and let's see, when you crouch, what needs to be happening is we also need to get the magnitude of our movement. So I think our after image has that sort of information. What was the bitey state base? It was, or was it the movement controller that we've got the walk speed at? Basically, I want to know if we're walking. So we'll see if our speed is greater than our trot speed. Where is that? The player logic object doesn't have that. It's the controller. So we have to get the movement controller thing? I guess maybe I should have a can crouch on the movement controller. So we should have a function which is inherited from our blueprint thing. So if we add a new function here, we're going to call it can crouch. And so our dash ability was just calling something like this. So if we call crouch let's see if we have this interface, and it should return can crouch, and its default is going to be this thing. So we'll check it out. So if can crouch new param. Alright, there it is. So we'll see if this is true. Then we continue on. Alright, so the movement controller, we're going to have a can crouch. So we have dash over there, we have can crouch. We need to throw it over here. Well, I want this event here. I mean, am I supposed to add a function called can crouch? And alright, here it is. let's make one. Alright, so we'll set it to false to start with. And what we're going to want to do is grab the velocity, and if that's less than the trot speed, then this gets set to true. And if that's true, then we're going to set this to true. Alright, there we are. Everything kind of needs to be in its proper places, otherwise we're going to have problems. And this is a little bit verbose, but basically this setting stuff will help with the flow control later. Alright, so can crouch is basically going to say, okay, well, how's your velocity looking? We could also check like if the physics state is on the ground and that sort of thing. So we might want to just move this over to the movement controllers can crouch. So the movement will actually be like, okay, you know, can you actually crouch? Which I think makes sense. Alright, let's have a reroute node here. We're basically going to have this reroute node thing that comes and makes this real easy to look at. So it's real clear what's going on. It's just like, okay, well, these big branches out from the side. I think that'll make things look a little simpler. Alright, so our player logic object doesn't need any of this on the ground stuff. So what we've got so let's see, if we can crouch, all of our velocity, and if we're on the ground, is there. So if we can crouch, then we are going to say, go ahead and crouch, I'm guessing. So we want to know if with the y-axis, the z-axis, or the left stick y-axis is all we care about. So we can actually get rid of the x-axis here. Actually, no. Alright, so if the x-axis, I guess we need the absolute value. If the absolute value of this is greater than what, like? Greater than 0.6 or something? Then we'll return. So if the x-axis is like that, and we want the y-axis, if the y-axis is, I guess, less than, so if the y-axis is less than, let's see, let's see, 0.3, I'll just do 0.5. Then I guess we want to crouch. Otherwise we don't want to crouch. So we'll set it to true. Otherwise, all the rest of these need to set it to false. Alright, so for crouching, we want to basically set wants to crouch to false. I guess maybe we should make a new function called it should be like set crouch flag. And right here we should call crouch, not the other one. And crouch should basically set wants to crouch. And then we want to call set crouch flag. Alright, so if we get wants to crouch at the beginning, let's see, so if we set our initial crouch in here, and if this is different, so we need a branch here, flow control. So we're going to get wants to crouch, and we're going to get this. So if these are equal to each other, no, we should just, we're just going to say set wants to crouch. And set our crouch flag, and well, I guess we should tell the movement thing what we want to do, and we just want to say like set wants to crouch to true or false. So we should go to our movement controller interface, and we want another function. We want it to do set wanted set crouch flag. So we want to take a new one, is should crouch. And then we want to call like that. Okay, so we have our interface should be picking this stuff up, like let's see, we'll close that and open this again. I just see can crouch, but I should also see the other event, which is this movement interface. Should be a function there. So binding movement interface for dash has an actual like thing on it. So maybe we have this. It's an event, not an actual function call. All right. Alright, so we'll set the flag if we should crouch or not. So the controller will tell us if we should crouch or any of that stuff, and we will be informed of that there, and then we can actually, inside of our post update, figure out if we should. Whole bunch of random stuff. And this is how it always is when we start writing a whole bunch of code, movement stuff. As things start to get complicated. Alright, so basically what we want to do is we want a can crouch, and we want like should crouch. Otherwise we'll do this other stuff. So I guess we don't actually need the can crouch function referenced inside of the controller. It's like the player logic object, we like have this set crouch flag method which calls like if can crouch or something. And basically this can just go away, and all we're doing is setting the crouch flag based on that stuff. So I can just take this off. Alright, so this actually makes a lot more sense to me, I guess. We're just basically inside of our player controller seeing if the controls are saying we should crouch and there's not something else going on. Which also means that maybe this jump animation stuff should not be in the player controller, but we should just instead be like trying to jump there. I'm not going to go do a whole bunch of stuff, so we're going to delete this can crouch off of here and go to our movement controller, and can crouch is just a function. This is just annoying. Now, why in the hell can't I name this thing? It says this is used by another variable or function, which is not correct. Like, we have gotten rid of it, and somehow, like, everything is freaking out. I don't know. It has something to do with deleting the interface and all that. Alright, so basically right now, if we're not in our jump state or any of these things, we're going to actually try to enter our crouch. And we're going to try to crouch. Yeah, and that's also, we've got this like landing playing, we've got these other animation things that should probably be inside of the movement, not inside of the player controller. Well, let's see what it looks like right now. Alright, so nothing happens. Alright, so let's go to our player logic object. So our event graph is going to call crouch. So the jump animation ID is -1. Okay. And our x-axis value This value needs to be if it's less than -0.5. Set wanted crouch. Alright. So let's see, the bitey movement controller. Let's see, let's have a branch here. It's not an and, it's an equals. So if these two are equal, is false. And also info log. So let's log it out. Setting crouch flag to true, false. Alright, so we are setting our flag properly, and I'm going to need a couple minutes here, and I'll be right back. So let's see, if we're doing our crouch, our toggle is proper, but we're not actually getting into our crouch state. Then what can we do? So, are we actually calling set on this? Nope. I'm going to change this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I should have a branch here, like if we should crouch, then what we're going to do is we're going to say, can we crouch? And if that's true, then we head over here. Otherwise we head here. Alright, so let's play that. So, can crouch is if we are on the ground. Alright, so we're looking at our vector length for this guy, and our trot speed is less than it. So the issue is we're not setting it to true for our return value. Like, this should definitely be a true. So I can just do something like this. And we can get rid of this thing entirely. So we just have like two return node sorts of things. I think that looks pretty good. So we'll start looking at all this here. Okay, so we are now entering and exiting crouching and all that stuff. Ugh, alright. So try to crouch needs to not loop the animation. Get anim duration. We don't want that. Our duration should be, let's just say, 1 second. Gotta love it. Adam's animations on these things. Alright, so this thing, I should fix the debug logging. Alright, so what we're going to want to do is then pick the correct animation for our character. So we've got the actual crouched animation, which is what we want to play. Alright, so try to crouch. If we have not entered the crouch, then try to crouch. I guess maybe I should throw like one of these like can play animation, and it should be one of these. Because we're copy pasting this crap pretty much everywhere. So we can actually put that in our Bitey state base. So add a new function. We'll call it can play animation. So let's have if this is true. Return true. compile that. Alright, so this should be can play animation. Alright, so what we should do is so we have try to crouch. Otherwise, what we want to do is we want to play our correct animation. So it's going to be based on our speed. So we're going to want to get our velocity magnitude. So if the vector length is float greater than 0, otherwise we want to call crawl.